Developing news. Finland and Sweden to join NATO. India says, no wheat for you. NATO drills. Proxy war with China. Finland and Sweden's historic shifts on NATO. In a historic decision for two long-neutral countries opposed to military alliances, Finland and Sweden confirmed Sunday that they'll apply to join NATO in response to Russia's war in Ukraine. The Finns came out first and immediately informed Vladimir Putin, while the Swedes only gave the go-ahead after the ruling Social Democrats finally agreed, although they are against hosting NATO bases or nuclear weapons. The two Nordic countries are expected to formally submit their applications in the coming days, but their bids may have hit a last-minute snag. NATO member Turkey resents the Finns and Swedes for their historic support for the Kurdistan Workers' Party, which Ankara considers a terrorist organization. NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg hopes the two sides will be able to iron out their differences quickly, but Turkish demands could delay the process. Meanwhile, Putin warned Finland, which shares an 800-mile border with Russia, that joining the alliance will be a historic mistake, and cut off the Finns from Russian-generated electricity. India's untimely wheat ban. As if global food prices needed another reason to skyrocket, India, the world's second-largest producer of wheat, announced on May 13 that it will temporarily suspend exports of the grain. The decision drew criticism from the G7, which warned that the export ban will create more turmoil in global agricultural supply chains already upended by the Russian invasion of Ukraine. India, for its part, insists that its recent heat wave, which has crippled wheat production and pushed local prices up, demands prioritizing its domestic market. The ban is a major flip-flop by India, which had recently pledged to increase exports precisely to make up for the shortfall in global production from the war between the world's number 1 and number 5 producers. But combating rising inflation is a more urgent priority for PM Narendra Modi, whose ascent to power in 2014 was in part aided by public rage against inflation. NATO military drills on Russia's doorstep. Amidst the ongoing tension with Russia, 20 countries of NATO are conducting 2 exercises each simultaneously. These exercises are being organized in 8 countries of Europe including Poland and Estonia. In this, in addition to hundreds of tank cannons, missiles, warships, and fighter planes, 18,000 soldiers are taking part. Poland joint military exercises are held from May 1 to May 27. In Estonia from May 16 to June 3. Finnish and Swedish troops are among those taking part in a large-scale, NATO-led military drill that has begun on May 16 in Estonia. NATO spokesperson says that exercises like these show NATO's strength. However, from Russia's perspective, these maneuvers are being seen as a direct challenge to Moscow. What they are doing is surrounding Russia. To judge by its latest statements, the Biden administration is increasingly committed to using the conflict in Ukraine to wage a proxy war against Russia, with as its goal the weakening or even destruction of the Russian state. As dangerous as it is to have one proxy war between 2 nuclear superpowers, there's a possibility we may end up with a second one, between the US and China. The big picture, China is America's main geopolitical competitor. There is no denying that the global power structure has shifted. Russia may have the largest nuclear arsenal in the world, and its economy may be larger and more resilient than the West assumed when levying their sanctions on it. However, Russia is not America's main geopolitical competitor. That title clearly belongs to China, which has 10 times Russia's GDP and 10 times its population. Some have speculated that China is the ultimate audience for the West's proxy war against Russia, to show the power of the West's sanctions and military aid that could be brought to bear against China in a proxy war against it. Since global economic conditions are deteriorating and thousands of companies in Europe and the US have declared bankruptcy, China's companies have returned to production strongly and quickly, helping China narrow the economic gap with the US. China's ability and willingness to assume global leadership will have a significant impact on the future of the planet. Today, China is not only a major player, it is the most important player ever. The risk of a proxy war with China. Poking the Chinese dragon over Taiwan. Very worrying sign of the direction the US is taking. The State Department has made a major change in its fact sheet on Taiwan, removing reference to the island nation being a part of China and elevating its status. The new and updated text started reflecting on the State Department website from May 5. Joe Biden himself has pledged that Taiwan can count on America's support were an invasion to break out at any time. These supportive words were backed up with a $750 million deal to provide a howitzer military system to Taiwan in August 2021, a $100 million deal to supply and upgrade Taiwan's Patriot missile systems on February 8, 2022, and another $95 million missile deal on April 6, 2022. After the second of these three deals, the Taiwanese Foreign Ministry stated, "In the face of China's continued military expansion and provocative actions, our country will maintain its national security with a solid defense and continue to deepen the close security partnership between Taiwan and the United States." China's concerns over the vast expansion of U.S. efforts to turn Taiwan into a Pacific Ukraine, including a doubling of military officials in the U.S. Embassy compound in the past year, are very real. John Lander, former Australian ambassador to Iran and deputy ambassador to China, warns of the risk of the West fomenting a proxy war over Taiwan, and, failing that, using Australia as a proxy instead. However, according to Arnaud Bertrand, there is a chance that Taiwan won't let the US push them into this scenario, in which case he says Australia is currently being maneuvered in a similar position as the principal proxy for the US war against China, and that they might be the trigger for war.